Look, I think in life you could set a goal, and maybe the thing that motivates you, for me, it was like, I'm gonna be special. I'm gonna do something no one's ever done before. And I see it happen at Spartan too, where somebody will say, well, I'm doing, one race on this continent, and so everybody's creating their own challenge that no one's done before. And so for me, it was like, I'm gonna do all the Ironmans offered in a row. No one's ever done it before, and I'll be able to pat myself on the back. And my ego will get fed. I remember being really tired at the Ironman Switzerland and walking, and there was a couple people walking behind me, and I heard them mumbling about something that was much grander than what I was working on. It was like 50 Ironmans in a row, and I just was defeated. I was like, I was shot at that moment. Like, it was already hard enough what I was trying to do, and now we just upped the stakes. So I've always been a little annoyed with that guy.
Please welcome Joe De Sena.
Thanks for having me.
For those viewers who don't know about, what is a Spartan Race and why do you like the format of it?
So a Spartan Race is what you would see the military do on an obstacle course during their training. Right? You're climbing ropes, you're jumping over walls, you're throwing a spear, trying to hit a target, or in the military's case, shooting a weapon. And you're either doing 3 miles, 8 miles, or 13 miles. And it's exciting because when somebody runs a half marathon, somewhat boring. But when you throw 30 obstacles in the way and there's these challenges, keeps it fresh, keeps it exciting. When there's 8,000 other people there doing it with you, and you time folks, it becomes really exciting and transformative. And I knew we had something when I started seeing the tattoos. And on last count, we're close to 30,000 Spartan tattoos out there. And so if somebody's gonna like permanently mark their body as a Spartan, it's really become almost like a modern day church for a lot of people. It's clean, well, it's dirty, but it's clean and healthy, and it's a great lifestyle and a great message and mission.
So much to talk about, Joe. One of the things that we just talked a little bit about our kids off camera, and one of the things that I try to do as a parent is help my kids understand that true success is just on the other side of struggle. You must struggle in order to have that, to realize what it takes, but you have to set appropriate struggles so you don't break them. You live your life this way. Tell me a bit about your relationship with struggle and success.
I grew up in a neighborhood riddled with organized crime. If you saw the movie Goodfellas, I grew up ground zero. So half the people in that neighborhood were doing bad things, but they hustled and they were getting stuff done and they were looked up to, believe it or not. The other half of the people owned businesses, maybe first, second, third generation business. Could be a pizza place, could be a masonry yard, but they were up at 5 a.m. Coffee was being brewed, bagels were being buttered. If somebody owned like a tow truck business, it was very integrated in their life. Like the CB radio was in the kitchen while mom was making sauce and people were eating, like the business was going on. There's just a lot of struggle in that environment because businesses worked really hard and sometimes didn't succeed. Folks worked really hard and went to jail. And so I grew up around that, and it just was like you either got on that conveyor belt or you fell behind and you were out of the game. Mom doesn't like any of what I just described, walks into a health food store because her mother died of cancer abruptly, and she meets a yogi who had just landed at JFK Airport and went into the same health food store. They start talking, and somehow he convinces her that she needs to throw away the raviolis and cannolis and pick up, salad, become vegan, start teaching meditation and yoga, and she converted right there. So came home, I remember the day, I was young, my grandfather was home. She throws out sausage and peppers and ravioli, everything, and everybody's like, what is going on? Parents get divorced, no wonder. And Dad was part of that whole thing I just described. Dad was a serial entrepreneur. We're all Italian, so you had to be part of that whole scene in order to make it all work. He had a trucking company. And again, both hardcore individuals, just they went in two completely separate directions.
You've had a lot of businesses. I mean, I read a bit of it before we went on camera, but tell us about those first businesses in the neighborhood.
So my dad was doing really well, 70s, early 80s, and then things fell apart. He had over-leveraged himself. He had lost a big account with his trucking company at the airport, and I watched that slow decline of his business. And I remember I was with my mom as they were getting divorced, and she was going to buy a car but couldn't afford it after the divorce, and she said, you know, if you want nice stuff, because there was a nice car dealership next to the one where we were, if you want nice stuff, you got to work. You got to, you know, go do the hard stuff. And a light bulb just went off at that moment that, oh, wait a minute. Just because my dad is not doing as well as he used to be doesn't mean that I can't do well. I have to go do what I have to do to get ahead. And so I started poking around. I was always curious. And my neighbor, my dad's neighbor, was the head of the Bonanno organized crime family. Many of those guys had nice swimming pools, and he said, look, he saw the struggle my family was going through. He said, if you want, you come over and clean my pool, I'll pay you $35 a week. I need somebody to do it anyway. I was pre-teens. I showed up my first day, ready to do it, and he sat me down and he said, I'm gonna give you 3 lessons, and then we're never gonna talk about this again. He said, number 1, on time is late. Like, I tell you to be here at 8 a.m., you get here at 7:45. Number 2, if you're gonna clean the pool, if that's what I'm paying you for, you also have to straighten up the lawn furniture, clean the shed, clean the window, even though you're not getting paid for that. You gotta go above and beyond. And number 3, never ask me for money. If you do a good job, you get paid. Never ask anybody for money. And those 3 lessons stuck with me forever, and I'm glad he gave them to me because it worked. I took them to heart. I started to implement that system, and then I had his friend's pool and another friend's pool. And by the time I graduated college, I had 700 customers like him that I was maintaining on a weekly basis, eventually doing brickwork and replacing windows and construction, and it became quite a business.
Yeah, when you're good at something, people just want you to do everything, right? They just say, oh, you could just do this, this, and this because you're dependable.
You show up early, you stay late, and you go above and beyond. I never asked for money, so I was a home run to have around.
How seminal of a moment do you think that was? Obviously, you distinctly remember being at the car lot and your mom saying, if you want nice things, you got to do the work. You got to do the hard stuff. And you're at a moment where you see nice cars. Your dad and your mom, their life's sort of falling apart. Your dad's. I mean, how much do you think that maybe that drives you and has driven you to do really hard things?
Yeah, I mean, look, it was painful. Over a decade, I watched my father's financial success fall apart. So that's got to create some sort of PTSD for sure. When you have 700 customers that you get to peek into the lives of, right? I could walk in any one of their houses, I could eat in their kitchen, I could stay over on their couch. I was that friendly with my customers, and that over that decade plus where I was doing this business and in and out of those households, I was secretly saying, gee, when I get married, when I have a family, when I grow up, I want to do more of that. I want to do less of that. Like, those 2 people are fighting a lot, their family's falling apart, those kids are not listening. Whatever the things were that I was paying attention to, consciously or subconsciously, I think I was taking notes and saying, this is how I'm going to live my life, this is not how I'm going to live my life.
That's fascinating because most people model essentially their parents because that's what they see. But you got to model, depict the best of 750 families.
It's unbelievable. I mean, I saw wives cheating on husbands, husbands cheating on wives.
Well, you were the pool boy. I mean, come on.
Yeah, no, it wasn't that, it had nothing to do with me. Drinking, staying up late, waking up late. I saw it all, and it was better than a college education in some ways. And you just triggered the thought as you asked the question.
You went to Cornell. What did you study at Cornell?
I studied textile and apparel management. I studied women's hemlines. I studied the science of fiber and then international textile business.
What was your purpose for that?
My parents got divorced. It was not very accepting of my mother's ways in the neighborhood. They weren't into wheat germ sandwiches and all the things she had become very bohemian in this very Italian neighborhood. So she found a place via her guru called Ithaca, New York, where we were going to relocate. So she moved my sister and I to Ithaca, and then I would go back and forth to see my dad. I couldn't wait to get away from Ithaca and get back to Queens and run my business and see all the guys in the neighborhood and the friends. As I was graduating high school, in a mad dash to get back to the neighborhood, my friend from Ithaca says, hey, why don't we go to Cornell? I had lived in Ithaca, but it was not on my radar. I was not going to a college, wasn't in the cards, my SAT scores weren't good, my grades weren't good. I had a business, why would I go to college? And he said, my dad's a professor, and he'll get us both in. That I understood. That was a neighborhood thing. Like, I got a guy, he's gonna get us a muffler, he's gonna get us into Cornell. So we went on the interview. I had to get a suit, my friend got a suit, we went on this interview, and just the interview was enough to make like reverberations around the neighborhood. My dad, oh, my son went, on an interview at Cornell. That was enough. I didn't even have to get into school. It would have been enough. And the interviews went very well for my friend and I, and neither of us got accepted. And I was told that I should probably just go to another school, and that just pissed me off. And now I was interested in Cornell, right? I had my eyes set on it. And my friend said, look, my dad said we could take classes at Cornell. You could do that at many universities. You're non-matriculated. The classes don't count towards anything, but we might be able to prove to the admissions department that we could handle the workload. So why don't we do 3 classes each? Regular students will take 5 classes. We'll reapply in the winter session. And so I said, all right, if I'm gonna do that, I'll go to St. John's University in Queens during the summer while I run my business. I'll get tuned up, I'll learn how to study, because I hadn't done any of this stuff before. And he said, why would you do that? If we're gonna get serious in the fall, let's go to Vegas, let's party all summer, and then we'll buckle down in September. And I thought about it for like a moment, and I think I learned about delayed gratification at that moment. One, I had to run my business, but 2, save the fun for later. We got work to do. I went to St. John's. I fell in love with studying because it was a new challenge. I was literally running my business, going to take classes, and we both arrived on campus at Cornell in fall. We both took our 3 classes. I crushed it. I got 2 A's and a B, which I might as well have landed on the moon. And we reapplied. No chance we're not going to get accepted. Now we proved we could do it, and I went to St. John's, and I didn't get accepted. And they said, look, you should really go to another college. And I said, I'm gonna do it again. And I'm just gonna keep doing it until you accept me. So I did it again. My friend pivoted, and he tapped out, and he went to UNLV because he had so much fun in Vegas during the summer. If we fast forward our lives, I'm here. He became a medicinal marijuana dealer. So I don't know who's doing better, but that's how our lives had separated at that point. And I did it a 3rd time. By the 4th semester, I said, I'm done. They broke me. My business is getting really big back in Queens. I don't need this. I don't even need college. Your mind starts playing tricks on you when you quit anything challenging. Your mind puts very logical reasons as to why you should quit, right? That's what the brain does. And I was tapping out, and my mom, who was about to lose her son for good, because once the son leaves, right? She said, look, I teach yoga to this woman that I think works at Cornell, Professor Anita Racine. And would you take a lunch with her before you pack it in? And I said, my mom doesn't have any connections. She teaches yoga, eats branch sandwiches, what does she know? But I'll do it out of respect for my mom. My dad would have had connections. And I sit down with Professor Anita Racine, and she says, oh, I'm looking at your grades look pretty good. Do you know anything about textiles? And I said, not really. And she said, well, I run the textile department, and we have 96 women in the department, and we have no men, and we need diversity. I said, I love textiles. How do I get more textiles? So she accepted me into her program, and that's how I ended up there. And if I had to do it again, I would do it again, because the textile industry at that moment in time was going through a complete upheaval. All the factories in the US were closing, everything was getting moved offshore. If you were trying to import, there were quota issues, it was a nightmare. And we got to play a part in all that and analyze it and problem solve. And plus I could see a movie from the 1920s or the 40s or the 60s, and I know exactly when it's from based on women's hemlines, because we studied them, because it was the whole department was women. And that was it. Graduated on time. My final semester, I was 14 credits short because of what happened at the beginning, right? Or 13 credits short and I did it all, and I made Dean's List. And for me, that was, again, that was like unbelievable, that here was a guy for 4 semesters, you said I couldn't handle it. I did double the workload, and I did well. It's
so fun to me, like, talking about kids these days and stuff. It's like, you know, you ask your kid, hey, what happened with that? Oh, I sent an email, I didn't hear back. It's like, I did Rudy's documentary, and Rudy says, pester life until it gives in. Like, he just annoyed the crap out of him until they let him to Notre Dame. And I think that strategy still works. Just no one does it.
Oh, it definitely works. No one does it. Kids today with the phones, there's no way they would learn. I learned that in the neighborhood, right? Like, I remember my father screaming at somebody that worked for him in the trucking business because that guy that worked for him said, well, I haven't been able to see him. He hasn't come home. And my father said, well, then you wait in front of his door until he does. And I remember hearing that. And that's, you learn that, right? Like you said, your parents model the behavior that you pick up.
I've been in the music business forever, and when I was younger, people would tell me, man, if I could just get a meeting with this guy, I would just do anything. I'm like, well, would you? They're like, yeah, do anything. I'm like, well, you know he has an office, and you know if you go wait out front of that office, probably, it might take you 5 or 6 days, but you can meet the guy. Right. And they would never do it because they really weren't willing to do whatever it took. I would imagine, this is me projecting, but I'd imagine you have a complicated relationship with quitting, because I imagine there's not many things you would quit, but also, you have to have safety over your racers in Spartan Race. Like, there are times when you should quit. Like, what have you learned about quitting, and maybe when you should?
It's interesting. I've been thinking about it for 40 years, right? Because not quitting could kill you, right? And physically kill you or kill your business. Or there are moments when you're supposed to pivot. But if the number one motivator for the human brain is the avoidance of discomfort, well, then it's always wanting you to quit. And that's what's kept us alive on the planet, as long as we don't fall off cliffs, we don't freeze to death, because our brain is saying, oh, don't expend that extra energy, don't do that extra work, just turn around, quit. And so when do you know if it's the right time to quit or not? And I've come to the conclusion that if you and I were climbing Mount Everest, and you wanted to be the best family man that ever lived, and I wanted to be the best mountain climber that ever lived, and we were 100 feet from summiting, and it was snowing like crazy, and the weather was bad, and based on, the rule book, we were supposed to turn around and head back down and not summit that day. You should turn around because you want to be the best family man that ever lived. I might go for it. This is my window, my chance to be the greatest mountain climber that ever lived. If I summit right now, I get the gold. I don't have a family. My true north is different than your true north. So I think at those moments where the brain is nagging us to stop what we're doing, it's too hard, we have to, take a tactical pause and say, what's our true north? Why am I doing this? For me, for example, with Spartan, I want to change 100 million lives. So when I get presented, and that's a ridiculous goal. Like, I don't know if I can change 100 million lives or not, but that's my goal. I say it over and over and over, put it out into the universe, and I hope it happens. So when I say that, and I'm in this tough spot, I can't make payroll one week, COVID shuts me down for 2 years, and I'm like, I should just get a job. Life would be so, and by the way, every day that happens to me, right? I think that's the best way to ascertain whether to quit or go forward.
Yeah, it's all about defining very clearly what your core values are and sticking to them.
And sticking to them, no matter what.
Simple yes and no, right? There's no fork in the road when you know, right? What happened once you graduate from college, you graduate on time, you have this business, what do you do next?
So I graduate on time. I tried to do the 5-year MBA program. I was like, well, I got in, I got my credits, I got everything I needed to do. Could I do the 5-year program? And I took this entrepreneurship class, and I met somebody there who had managed $1 billion. And I'd never met anybody that managed money before. And we became friends. He was Italian. I bought him a bottle of Sambuca because I was from the neighborhood, and I clicked with the guy. Anyway, he said, what are you doing when you graduate? And I said, I'm going back to the neighborhood. I'm going to run my business, and it's doing very well right now. He said, you're an idiot. You got to go to Wall Street. And I didn't really know much about Wall Street. I knew 1987 there was a stock market crash 3 years earlier. I assumed nobody was making money on Wall Street. It was over, whatever that thing was they did there. And I went back to run my business. Well, this guy called me every month on the month for 48 months in a row. Every month. Joe, what are you doing? How's everything? How's your business going? Did you go to Wall Street yet? Did you get any interviews? When are you going to go? Leave me alone, Al. I'm not going. We became friends, right? And I talked to him. 4 years into those phone calls, I had a customer that owed me $140,000 for a job I had done. And I was going to pick it up that day. And Al calls me and he says, look, if you're not gonna listen to me, I want you to buy this stock. It's called Syntex. It's a drug company. And I blew him off and I went to go get my $140,000 check from, I can't believe I'm remembering all these names, Eli Novick, and he was a pharmacist. And he comes out of his house, he was towel drying his hair, just took a shower, and I said, hey, I got a crazy question for you. My friend just recommended this drug company, you're a pharmacist, is that a good idea, bad? He goes, I can't believe it. He goes, I'm about to buy some right now. I was gonna call my broker. Come sit down. And I go sit in his kitchen, calls his broker, and he buys 10,000 shares, spends $140,000 in front of me. And he sits me down and he says, Joe, you're single, you're making money, now's the time to take risks. I've been doing this game a long time, and he convinces me to take the $140,000 he owed me and buy the same amount of shares in this company. He helps me set up an account with his broker, we do it, and the company gets taken over the next day. And I make $100,000, and I was like, I'm going to Wall Street. This is the greatest business ever. So I sold my pool business, literally at that moment, to my employees. I took a pilgrimage there to Wall Street and got a job. Took 25 steps backwards because I went from making a really nice salary to making very little money to getting screamed at, whereas before I was doing the screaming, now I was the lowest man on the totem pole and built a career on Wall Street. I was scared when I first went to Wall Street. I didn't know anything. I couldn't do the math fast enough. I was answering 3 phones at once. I remember crying one day. Like, I owned backhoes and excavators. I was doing work for mobsters. Like, I was the guy. And here I was trying to answer phones, making a lot less money and not being able to figure it out. And ultimately, though, I got through it. Like, you always get through it. And so that was a lesson I was learning real time. The other big lesson I learned was I had an outsider's perspective. I mean, I cleaned pools, I laid bricks, and they had a system there at the time where they would have a morning meeting at 7 a.m. and the analysts would come up with all kinds of ideas. Like, I think Amazon's a good buy because they've got some new streaming capabilities. I think this is great, I think that is great. And then those analysts would share those ideas with salespeople, and those salespeople would call their customers, and the customers might call back, and then they would call a trader, and then the trader would call the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, and that would go to a clerk, and the clerk would then hand it to a floor broker, and there was like 7 people in that. By the time somebody made a decision, a stock or a derivative had already moved 10 or 15%. And so I'm an outsider, and I'm looking at this, and I'm saying, this is the most inefficient, this is ridiculous. Like, I would have never run. Imagine if a customer called me and said, I want you to clean my pool, and then I called somebody else, and they called somebody else, and then the truck, and there were 7 people, like, it would never work. I couldn't make the business work. So I had this idea, and it was ridiculous. What the hell did I know? That I was gonna start my own company where the customer would just call me, and I would type into a computer, buy or sell. And they didn't need any analysis from me because they had their own analysts, and they didn't need 7 people in the process. So I learned that just because you're an outsider, just because you come from a different place, doesn't mean you can't add a ton of value. And in some cases, in many cases, you add more value because you have an outside perspective.
What did you notice about yourself once you went from hard physical labor daily to sort of a desk gig?
I got fat. I became a sloth. I was unhealthy. I didn't feel good. I was making a lot of money, but the money didn't bring everything it was supposed to bring. So, I was talking to my cousin, my mom's sister's son, and he was talking about yoga, and I go, we hadn't brought up that topic in a decade, and he's like, oh man, I'm doing this hot yoga. It's unbelievable. You got to try it. I'm not doing yoga. And my mom tried to push me to do yoga forever. And like the next day, the elevator was busted in the building. And so I had to take the stairs. And I'm walking up the stairs and I see this guy, he's carrying dumbbells and he's ripped. He's literally a cover of like Men's Fitness or Men's Health, one of the magazines. And we're talking, he's carrying the dumbbells, I'm walking, probably with a briefcase or something, heading up the stairs, and I find out he works out every day in the stairs, and that's how he gets so fit. And who doesn't want to look like him? So I said, I'll meet you in the stairwell. And so I started working out in the stairwell. It turns out he did yoga, so I started doing yoga. I called my mom. I was like, should have listened to you 15 years. Everything you said was right. I should have ate more wheat bread, branch sandwiches. And that was the beginning of a journey that took me to where we are today.
I read that you got into some ultra marathons and other things. Tell me about getting into running.
So with that guy in the stairwell, he said, have you ever done an adventure race? I don't even know what an adventure race is. We're gonna go do one in Texas, it's gonna be great, and we're gonna train for it, and meet me in the stairwell, and we'll do yoga. So I started doing all this stuff, and I went and did this adventure race where we kayaked, and we biked, and we ran, and it was awesome. I felt so alive again after probably a decade on a trading desk. I just felt like, now don't forget, when I was doing the outdoor work, and I was laying bricks, and I was doing, like it was sunny out, and I was sweating, and I worked all day, 15 hours a day, you could work hard, you could eat maybe the wrong foods at times, but you were working. When you're doing that and sitting at a desk, like you're getting punched from both sides. And so this race felt amazing, and so I said, well, what's next? Like, what's harder than this? This was 3 hours. I said, what's the next, how do I, he said, well, there's 24 hours, but you can't do 20. Sign me up, we gotta do 24 hours. Went out and did a 24-hour race, and that was like unbelievable. It was like my whole life I would sleep at night. Now we were awake, and there were stars out, and we were barely able to walk. We were like sleepwalking and hallucinating, and it was amazing. And so I came to the finish line, and I said, give me the toughest race in the world. What's the toughest race in the world? And so the crazier it was, the more dangerous it was, the more impossible it was, the more interested I was. And I just chased these races all over the world.
You had a pretty crazy year one year. Do you remember the stats of how many ultra marathons you did and Ironmans?
I did a lot, but I didn't do enough. I had just had a car accident. A buddy of mine was driving. I didn't put my seatbelt on. We hit a tree at 85 miles an hour, and I went out the window. My leg was ripped out of my hip. I was definitely shell-shocked. They had to, crack my hip, put my femur head back in the hip, and I wasn't going to give up. Like they said, oh, you're not going to walk, you're not going to run. And my wife said, you're not doing any more of these crazy races because if your femur comes out of your hip, they said you could be stuck in a jungle somewhere, you're not doing it. And I said, well, there's these other races, these Ironman races, and there's ambulances around, so why not, I'll just do every one in the world in a row. I'll do them all. I think I was 14 Ironmans in, I was in Switzerland. And I hear like a couple of people behind me talking about like a challenge they're taking on. Some guy's gonna do 50 Ironmans in a row, like one day after the other. And I remember my shoulders just dropped and I was like broken because I said, doesn't matter. Like whatever you think you're doing that's so special, there's somebody doing something bigger and better. And after hearing that guy, that was it.
So, all right, so now you're addicted to this stuff, you decide to have a family, you're still on Wall Street. What takes you off Wall Street?
Well, I had a picture of a red barn on my desk. I knew that this was just like a stopover point. I wasn't planning on, and the one thing I never wanted to do in my life was sit at a desk all day. But I was sitting at a desk all day, and I wanted to get to a red barn, I wanted to have a family, I wanted to apply all those great things I had learned from all those other families and not apply the bad things I had seen. Randomly met my wife for a moment at a race, chased her down, got her to at least, go on a date with me, and then it looked like we were gonna get married. We looked for a farm. The first holiday we're together, probably 6 months into our relationship, she gives me a book, America's Greatest Barns, and she writes in it, love you, don't worry, someday we'll find a barn together. I lose the book. A year later, we're flying back from some race somewhere, and there's a real estate magazine in the back of the seat pocket on the airplane. And I open it up, and there's a Vermont farm for sale. And all the other real estate is ridiculously expensive, but this Vermont farm, covered bridge, mountain, horses, and it was $400,000. And I was like, we gotta go check this out. It's Vermont because you're from Boston, I'm from New York, it's kind of halfway. Pretty, fairly affordable. So we went up there, we ended up buying it, settled in, did a renovation, started having kids, got married on the farm, found that book she had given me a year earlier, opened it up. Across from her inscription is our place. Pretty bizarre. So then we did, 14 years straight on the farm, which was epic. But then Spartan had become a business, so we started moving around the world.
Yeah, tell me about Spartan and how that became a business.
Well, so once we had the farm, then I started to take my foot out of Wall Street, and I said, I'd love to bring people to this farm and torture them and have them go through all the stuff that I've learned and gone through, because it transforms you. You get to meet yourself, you know? And so I started telling people to come up, but people didn't really. It's a 5-hour drive from New York, it's a 3.5-hour drive from Boston. What are we gonna do? Joe's gonna torture us. So I started to lie to people. I started to say, oh, we're having a big barbecue weekend this weekend, come on up. And I'd wake them up at 5 in the morning, and why are we getting up at 5 in the morning for barbecue? Well, we gotta get the barbecue to the top of the mountain. They didn't know they were the ones being barbecued. So I was torturing people, and then it became a thing. Started putting on races, eventually creating the Death Race, which got a lot of notoriety in 2007 with the New York Times, which then led to all these production companies and cable networks flying into Vermont to meet with me and talk about a television show for this crazy guy that lives in Vermont with a death race. That then led to this idea of putting on Spartan Race, which then led to 45 countries and 1.5 million participants a year, and got me completely out of Wall Street and focused on changing 100 million lives.
You're essentially an event company. I mean, races are events all around the world. COVID hits. Obviously, you have big decisions to make. Tell me a bit about what's going on in your mind, and then maybe some of the first tactical moves and how you thought through what you were going to do.
I was in Sparta, Greece. I was with Gerard Butler and the producers of the movie 300. And we were lighting a torch for the Olympics. It was going through Sparta. And I woke up super early that morning, because I like over Sparta, the way the sun comes up. I like to do burpees as the sun's coming up over Sparta. I feel like it's just, you know, it just fits the brand so well. And my phone was blowing up, and I guess Trump was closing the border. And then my wife was saying, you have to get home, otherwise you're gonna get stuck in Europe. And immediately jumped in a car, got to Athens, flew to Heathrow. And I had like 5 hours in Heathrow to start planning and thinking, like, oh my God, we've already got 350,000 people signed up for this year by March 19th, ready to race. Our season's about to start. They've paid for tickets. I've spent a lot of that money organizing the races that are about to happen. And I might get shut down in 45 countries. We got to furlough people. I don't know what we're gonna do. I called my buddy who owns Saks Fifth Avenue. It's pretty funny that we're friends, because I sell barbed wire and he sells diamonds. And I asked him for advice, and he said, you gotta be really careful. You're gonna have to like tighten your belt, conserve cash. You're gonna have to furlough a lot of people. He called it shooting puppies. You're gonna have to shoot a lot of puppies, right? Things that you wanna spend money on. You just gotta conserve cash. We don't know how long this is gonna go. And so we did the best we could. We immediately pivoted to the farm. We moved the whole family back to the farm, along with our social media people, you know, the people we could keep on and pay. My little Alex, my little daughter, Alexandra, was 7. I said, you know what we're gonna do? Every morning we're gonna wake up at 5 in the morning, and we're gonna do a global warrior call, we're gonna call it. And anybody in our circle, in our universe, can get on that call, and we're gonna get news from around the world, because we operate in 45 countries. What's going on in Japan? What's going on here? What's going on there? Who's a doctor? Who can give us information? And so for 100 days in a row, we held the 5 a.m. every single day warrior call. Then my daughter Alex and I would do a live workout. And I ended up doing 4 workouts a day, kept myself sane, kept myself fit. Her workouts that she led would get millions of views, because a little 7-year-old doing workouts. And it was like Groundhog Day. We did it every day, same thing. Wake up 5 a.m., do the warrior call, do 4 workouts, and just waiting for something to break. Barely hanging on. I had everybody calling, every vendor, oh my God, you gotta pay me. I had a guy call saying that he was gonna send Italians to my farm up in Vermont and break my legs. I said, can you get me their names, because I probably know them? And he hung up, right? Never to hear from him again. So there was a lot of threats. There were a lot of pissed off customers. And by the way, it's not better. It's not really better now. I mean, we're coming out of it, but we got run over by a steamroller.
How'd you keep going? I mean, what did you do to get any sort of revenue during that time?
I mean, we sold some merchandise. But you know, here's a company, let's say, that was doing a couple $100 million a year in revenue, that went to like 7. Last count, you know, we lost $50 million, which we didn't have to lose. So what keeps you going is you have no choice. Your back's against, like, what am I gonna do? And by the way, for the 20 years preceding, I'm telling the whole world to suck it up, buttercup, tape it up, and just get through tough times. And so I gotta do it. I gotta figure it out.
You've clearly figured out that media is crucial in your business. How do you look at media as part of the brand?
So media is an absolute pain in the ass, right? It takes up a lot of time. It's almost impossible to monetize. It's almost impossible to figure out attribution. Like, did that media actually drive any revenue? I have no idea. But what I know in my gut is that it's very hard to convince people to do what we ask them to do. I'm not selling cotton candy. I'm not selling handbags or diamonds or any of the fun stuff. I'm selling commitment, hard work, discipline. Who the hell wants that, right? And so I have to create media. I have to create moments that somehow tickle, excite a person, and then hopefully they bring somebody with them. They come experience this thing. One of them gets a tattoo. They get 4 more people. Like, it's the tip of the spear. It's the thing we have to do. It's the necessary evil. So how do we create media in the most economical way to spark and inspire folks? You know, hey Joe, you're writing another book. You don't make any money writing books. They're a nightmare. But it creates media, and it creates something that, you know, folks can follow, because this really is a lifestyle. The amount of videos we produce, you know, like, I don't know, could we cut it in half? Could we do double? I don't know. I just know that with the attention span of the current consumer, I gotta be in their face all day, every day to try to get them. And don't forget, I've had myself, let's say 20,000, literally 20,000 conversations with folks that have been at Spartan Races or now even Tough Mudder. And what you hear more often than not is, you know, I saw somebody with a t-shirt and then I checked it out, or I heard it on the radio, or I saw this podcast, or so, like, it always points back to something out there that brings them in, and it's usually media related. I've been chasing the elusive home run, right? And how do we get that decade-long show front and center on some major network? And it's been hard. We'd had a few fits and stops. I've paid to have some shows out there, and I've finally given up. Like, it's just too Hollywood. It's just impossible to deal with. And right before COVID, somebody said, oh, come to Rockefeller Center. We got a meeting with CNBC. I don't know what it's about. And like, that would never be a network I would have sought to put a Spartan type, you know, show on. Took the meeting, because I take every meeting. Walked in, the chairman was there, and I had my kettlebell with me, and I dropped my kettlebell on his desk, and at that time I was carrying a kettlebell everywhere I went, and we became friendly, and I gave him my views on life, my views on business. I thought it was ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous that business people, entrepreneurs, don't treat themselves like Olympians, that they'll go out for drinks at night or smoke cigars. Like, I don't understand. Every day we're going for a gold medal. Business is harder than the Olympics, as far as I'm concerned. Everything that can go wrong does go wrong. 95% of businesses go out of business. Like, you can't pick a more difficult sport than business, but you don't treat yourself like an Olympian. So he was intrigued, and he said, why don't we explore a show? So I worked with them, spent, I don't know, 20 days. We created a pilot. COVID hit, it died. And then on the way out of COVID, he called up and he said, let's reinvigorate that. I think the world could use it right now. There's been so many companies, so many startups that are out of business, so many restaurants out of business. And so I said, let's do it. I don't know, 6 months ago, we filmed for 65 days.
Someone might ask, based on what you just said about having beers or cigar or whatever, like, so what do you do for enjoyment?
I love going for a run. I love working out. I love feeling healthy, eating clean. I remember in college, when I was living in Ithaca and not back in Queens running my business, I got a job at a bar, in the college town bar. And it didn't pay very much, but I was bar back. And I was learning what that meant. I had to carry beers and stuff from downstairs on a cooler, bring them upstairs, bring all the drinks down, or the glasses downstairs, clean them. And I remember a bunch of kids that I kind of knew that were in fraternities and stuff saying, man, you gotta smile, you gotta have fun. And I thought, I remember like it's yesterday thinking, I'm having a blast. I'm working out, I'm sweating, and I'm getting paid. Like, being sloppy and drunk doesn't look fun to me. So, you know, I know anybody listening or watching this is saying this guy's weird because nobody else is like that, but I don't know. I think everybody else is weird. I think I'm the normal one. Like, why would you want to not be optimized for life? Like, don't complain about the results you don't get because you're not doing the work that you need to do to get the results, right?
Back to my car lot, you gotta do the hard stuff.
You gotta do the hard stuff.
You have a reputation for surprises in races and other things like that. Tell us, I read about you moving a finish line and tell me about those surprises and what you think that does for people.
So because business has been so hard on me and it's been such a resilience builder for me, and I've been so intrigued for 40 years with Rocky Balboa, with the scene in Rocky where he becomes complacent because he made some money, right? The Rocky that was fighting for milk with Adrian in that little apartment and his dog was different than the Rocky that had the Ferrari or the nice car and so I've been intrigued. And so how do I constantly test myself? How do I make sure that never happens to me? Always keep myself fighting for milk. And then that led to, what are things that suck for me, that just make me want to quit, right? You could fight through 3 months at Cornell if you know at the end of it, you're going to get in. If they then say no, and you got to do another semester, it becomes exponentially harder. If they say no, if they keep moving the finish line on you, it becomes real hard. And there's science behind it. I mean, they look at mice, and if you move the finish line on them, they eventually give up. So I'm a real student of psychology. I'm a real student of this idea of, how do you take somebody past bending them and actually break them? And those that don't break, they're inspiring for me and those around us, but the person is completely rewired, right? So I came up with all kinds of challenges on the farm and at races that just are meant to break people. And I'm really good at it.
Turns out you are. We started, saying that breakthrough is just on the other side of struggle, and what an amazing life change I'm sure you give people when they see how much they're able to struggle and what the breakthrough they get is.
Listen, this all started because of a 3,100-mile race in Queens that my mother introduced me to around a 1-mile loop that was run by her guru out of that health food store. 3,100 miles around a 1-mile loop, 60 days of running straight. And so when you see that as a young person, we are so much more capable than we think. We've learned helplessness. I can't park over here. The grocery store is a quarter. You know how many people I ask for directions, they'll say, oh, but you want me to get you an Uber? It's a quarter mile away. You're gonna walk a quarter mile? We've learned helplessness. I wanna you and I should talk about my next big thing, aside from coming out of COVID and reestablishing the business. My next big thing is a full featured film. I wrote a fiction book. Think Avengers, but taking place 2,500 years ago and all the way up to today, and characters. I wrote a book. My big goal, aside from changing 100 million lives, is someday to turn that into a movie.
Let's talk about it. Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Joe De Sena.
Thanks. Well,